Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my channel's weekly compendium for the week ending Monday 9th, 2022. Case file number 612, written by Raptor Hello Kitty, The Maze of Oblivion. These events happened in 2011, and I still don't have a logical explanation for them. I was doing a year abroad in the south coast of Britain to learn English. We were students between 16 and 18 years old, living in host families, so we didn't have much money or anything to do besides chilling outside or going to the beach in our free time. A Friday afternoon, we met two students from another school at the beach, and they asked us, my best friend and I, if we wanted to join them for a drinking night near their campus tonight. We said yes and invited some of our friends to the evening too. Some of us wanted to go home to take a shower or change our clothes, but me, my best friend, and two men from our friend group were living too far away, so we decided to go to the park next to the campus and wait there for everyone as the weather was perfect. We didn't know that place at all. We walked 30 minutes from the beach following our new friend's instructions. We were staying on a bench in the middle of a big park. Then my best friend and I went for a walk because we needed to pee. We were chatting and laughing. I remember the sky because it was sunset at golden hour. We wanted to explore the park a little bit because it had a beautiful garden. I remember seeing a green maze and asking my best friend to go there, and nothing else. With my best friend, we both woke up at 8:30 in her bed in her host family's home. We were wearing pajamas, feeling great and nothing messy in the room. What the hell? We opened Facebook to ask everybody what happened last night and nobody had an answer. The problem is we had a reputation of being outgoing and unpredictable, so when they didn't see us coming back, the boys didn't take it seriously and started drinking without giving a damn about us. Later, other people joined and everybody thought we were back home. We didn't know the road from the park to her home, didn't have smartphones or maps, didn't have money for taxi or public transportation. Some more information. This was a 12-hour complete memory loss, sunset at 8 p.m. Alcohol was present, but we didn't drink yet. No drugs, and we were all underage students. Every house/road looked the same in the city, and we didn't know the neighborhood at all. My best friend's host family didn't hear us coming back either. No injury, no hangovers, or dizziness. It happened at Guildridge Park, plus Manor Gardens, but what gives me goosebumps is that I don't see that maze anymore on maps. It's just not there. Or was it ever there? 10 years later, it still bothers me. We were best friends in England, but haven't seen each other since then. I managed to find her on Instagram and asked her if that's all in my head or if she is also still freaked out by this. She has no explanation and tries not to think about it anymore. It makes her feel uneasy. I'm glad because some people don't believe my story. Case notes, file number 612. You mentioned that the maze wasn't there on Google Maps. No small detail, I think. This sounds like hypnotism, to be made to see something that doesn't exist in physical reality. The reason I like this glitch is because two people are involved. That distills the mundane possibilities out, or far down. Could one single person blank out and forget what happened in a night, through drugs or even a medical condition? Sure, it's rare, but sure. Two people, though, at exactly the same time? Odds of that are astronomical. So dare I say aliens again? I'm not sure what else could create a memory loss of this type and so suddenly. My guess is that when aliens abduct us, they implant false memories into our minds, and if they're unable to implant them, or they don't stick, they either kill the subject or erase their memories. Or hell, maybe this tech of theirs is flawed. Maybe they don't always know if the implanted memory has taken hold in the subject. You see that maze, and perhaps it's only what you both are made to remember. It's your brains trying to suggest to you something is off. The memories are there but lost, inaccessible. By the way, hypnotherapy can be helpful to retrieve repressed memories, but I do advise caution if you pursue that avenue. Maybe it's best not to scratch at that barrier. As Death would say, don't tear at the wall, because what's behind it, you might not like. Case file number 613, written by Win Creative, 3773, the Secretive Grimm Hotel. This one's been on my mind for quite a while now. I've been wanting to get people's opinions for a while, but I never really dared to. So here I go. In 2018, a group of friends from college and I decided to go spend a month in Berlin over the summer. We spent our time between part-time jobs, partying, and just simply enjoying the city and its cultural activities. Everyone in the group was cycling, but not me. We had a bit of a bike situation with mine, and so I decided to spend the rest of our time there on foot or using the U-Bahn, metro. It wasn't that much of a bother until we decided to go and party near the River Spree. This place has bars and clubs, and it's overall a great place to party. But from what I recall, public transportation didn't go that far in the middle of the night. They had all cycled there, so I was the only one without means to go back to our apartment. It was a 20-minute cycle from the bar, but it was at least a 35-minute walk. A friend of mine, I'll call her Eva for the sake of the story, decided to walk back with me and just take her bike next to her so as to not leave me alone wandering the city in the middle of the night. It was about 4 a.m. Now arrives the glitch. As we were walking down this rather big street and chatting, I remember smelling food and seeing this restaurant past the pedestrian crossing to which we were headed. I'm a foodie and I was rather hungry, so that was pretty appealing. A woman was sitting there having food, black hair. I could see her profile through the large windows which took up almost the entire wall, up to the ceiling. I specifically remember thinking, damn, that's weird they're still open at this time of night. I gotta tell Eva when the flow of the conversation allows. As I was walking and starting to cross the road, the crossing in front of the restaurant, things got blank and it's like I was on autopilot. I was hearing her voice kinda muffled. Once we were past the restaurant, Eva stopped, turned to me and said, "Wait, wasn't there a restaurant just there with a woman eating?" I had completely forgotten to tell her. It's like my memory had been wiped and restored within seconds. And there it was, a hotel. The large windows were the same, and inside was the hotel's restaurant with a layout and tables that looked nothing like what we saw now. No woman was eating there either. We were both very shocked and saw that the receptionist, male, short hair, was in there. And I knew we just had to ask him if somebody was eating there just now. It was just too freaking weird. He was kind of freaked out about us coming in like that and said he'd been alone for hours. After discussing with Eva, we found out that she saw the woman eating, but she only saw her back. She was seated with her back to the window. When I could tell this woman was Asian because as she was seated, her profile was showing to me. After that, Eva never wanted to talk about it again. Even got pissed when I tried to bring it up. Also, people seem to have changed around me after this event. Even my mom didn't remember something she should have. A lot of people seemed different overall. I must also note that I wasn't drunk at all and staying up this late was really uncommon for me at that stage. Oh, and fun fact, the name of the hotel is the Grimm Hotel, in reference to the author of many fairy tale stories. This story is true though. It's on Alte Jakobstrasse in Berlin Mitte, if you want to look it up. Any thoughts? Bonus file, written by Gas Station Clerk, the Wormhole gas stations. Back in June of 2021, I had moved, and while driving, we went through Wisconsin. I can't really remember the town or anything, so sorry for that, but it was around 2 or 3 in the morning. We had stopped to try and get gas, but when we got into one town, it was like a ghost town. Absolutely no cars or anything. And while yes, it was pretty early, keep in mind we had seen plenty of cars up to this point. But regardless, we noticed a gas station and it was lit up, all the lights on inside, an open light glowing and everything. Yet, when we got closer and tried going into the doors, they were locked, and even went around the back looking for a car and nothing, not to mention all the gas pumps said, out of order. We got back in the car, not really thinking anything of it, until we found another gas station maybe a block away, and I'm not even joking when I say the exact same thing happened. So by now I was a bit put off, but I wasn't about to convince myself we entered some weird wormhole until it happened a third time. At this point, I didn't even want to get out of the car, but I needed to stretch my legs. When I did get out though, and my friend who was driving went to the doors, yet again nothing. When he was on his way back to the car, there was a blood-curdling scream. It genuinely made me sick to my stomach. And keep in mind, it was so freaking quiet up to this point. But we made our way back out of there as fast as we could and didn't see any cars until we got back on the highway. And after that, after getting settled in my apartment, me and my roommates just didn't feel well. When I was unpacking with one of them, something fell twice and we still don't know what it was. A few days later, my other roommate had said she felt like there was something in the apartment. Granted, I'm a paranoid person by default, so I don't know what the hell to call this. It was just a weird experience and a great story to tell. But it is persistent. Creepy file number 19, written by Kenny Gallen. When the treetops purr. Can't say whether or not this is supernatural, just that it's definitely odd and I can't explain it. I would absolutely welcome a rational explanation. My family and I rent a little farmhouse on an old tree farm in southwest Washington. It's extremely remote. We have one neighbor, a cattle farmer, about half a mile away across the creek as the crow flies, more like a mile by road. One night I was out gardening. I'm a night owl who farms and has a full-time job, and I heard the weirdest sound coming from what sounded like the canopy of the dense Douglas fir forest behind our garden. It sounded like a giant cat purring, but it moved relatively quickly around the same section of the forest. At first, I wrote it off as a drone, which was weird but not unimaginable. But when the sound got closer and louder, it seemed more organic to me. It sounded undulated, like it was coming from something alive, like how cats' purrs are rhythmic according to their breath. We get out a fair share of choppers, wildfire fighting practice, military training, logging choppers, all around our property. But this didn't sound like that at all. Not nearly loud enough, even from a distance, and it sounded closer. There are definitely wild cats around us. We've seen bobcats, and I'm sure there are cougars. We live adjacent to thousands and thousands of acres of timber forest, completely wild and unclaimed. But this cat would have had to have been jumping from treetop to treetop extremely quickly, which seems hilariously impossible. That basically leaves a drone, which just seems so weird. There were no lights, it never came above the tree line, and it was at night. I could see the timber company surveying with drones, maybe even doing some fire scouting. Really hard to imagine them doing it at night in the dark, and circling the one section that's not owned by the timber companies. My husband heard it too, and agreed it was weird. It happened last summer, and it's made me wonder from time to time. It wasn't really that scary, it was easy to forget about, but I've just never been able to properly explain it. It's not like it even lines up with any paranormal legends I've heard. I'd love anyone's ideas. Case notes, creepy file number 19. So first off, gardening at night sounds extremely peaceful, especially if the full moon is out, so you have enough light to make it practical. Second, I don't think it's a drone either, mainly by how you describe the actions of the drone. That said, I recently learned that many local municipalities employ drone pilots to scout properties to make sure nothing new was built. They really want their taxes, which kinda irks me if I am honest. If it was a drone, who'd have the motive to stalk some random rural homestead? It doesn't really make sense. Just to be safe, I'd keep that home very secure, but I'm sure you already do that. Case file number 614, written by All for Fun. Ribbit. Okay, so this is a dank one, to be honest. I have this tree frog in my kitchen, near the windows. I also have several lizards as well, and a few other animals as well, but those are unrelated. This is not a pet, by the way, just a more than welcome guest. Anyway, this frog is weird. It gives off weird vibes and seems to disappear into thin air. I technically had no proof of any effort afoot, it was just a feeling, but a little incident last night confirmed it, for me at least. I heard a noise in the kitchen, thought it was a rat, and was scared it was harassing the frog. So I go into the kitchen and see the frog in a place I have never seen it before. It was almost below the cabinets on a butter box I had on the shelf. I stared at it in awe because I was expecting a rat. I head back to my room, Maybe around 20 to 30 minutes later, I go to look at it again and get some water. It was not on the box anymore, so I went to get a better look. There was no sign of the frog being around, and yes, I peered into the cabinets and saw the gap between the wall and the cabinets. I also looked in its normal area, no signs. I turned around for like 10 to 15 seconds, and when I looked back, it was on the wall near the cabinets. There was no way for me to not see it coming out of my room or getting pretty close to the wall where it was without seeing it. A green frog on a white wall is pretty visible. Plus, it's not fast moving, like it takes a step every 10 seconds when moving, except when leaping. So it would seem it manifested while I was turned around. Also seen it glitch slightly, but I've less personal proof of that. For those asking how I heard it from my room is literally right next to it, connected with a door. Case file number 615, written by Emily Ain't a Spicy Name, a slice of two realities. This happened around a month or 3 weeks ago, and I don't know where to begin because I'm still trying to comprehend what I saw. I'm working with my boss in the back warehouse where we have a bright tank, carbonating beer or hard seltzer type thing, with a pressure gauge connected to the tank. The gauge was laid down, connected by a tube to the tank, so we had to pick up the gauge to read it. My boss bends down to grab the gauge to read it, and he immediately retracts his hand when he touches it, either the gauge or the surface below it, I'm unsure, saying, "Ouch." Describing what he said felt like a shock or a needle prick / piece of glass getting stuck in his finger, and I saw it too. I saw the skin split and the blood begin to well up. Then immediately it all disappeared. The cut itself was large enough that it would have bled for at least 20 to 30 seconds, paper cut like. I could see the two separated bits of skin and blood begin to well. I was right next to him. But then it disappeared, completely. His skin had no blemish at all. My boss starts to pick at his finger, presumably to remove the piece of glass. Then he, in surprised tones, says something along the lines of, "It's gone?" referring to the cut. Even after admitting this, he's still trying to find glass in his finger. Here's the kicker. There was never any glass broken in this location. I've watched the entire facility get rented and set up, and never have we dropped glassware and broken it in the spot where he got pricked. When this instance occurred, we both were baffled. It felt like I just witnessed my boss getting cut and not getting cut at the same time. It's as if the tip of one reality made contact with the tip of another, then split apart instantaneously. Perhaps in another reality, there was a sliver of glass there from breaking something, and it got missed when sweeping it up, but I am certain not in ours. And the cut I saw was too deep to close up in a split second like that. No blood anywhere, no glass, no scar. Bonus file, written by Second Fiddle 00, 2 Days of Life and Death. I'm pretty new to Reddit and didn't know you could post anything on here. I have a love/hate relationship telling the story. I was 12 years old and lived next to an elderly woman who I think was 95 or 96 years old. Our houses were relatively close to each other. Every day, she would go inside and sit on her porch and would wave at me when I got home from school. I would usually talk with her for a bit and ask her about her day and what she did. She liked me a lot and would tell me I reminded her of her son when he was young. I remember this day like it was yesterday. I got home and immediately realized she wasn't sitting on her porch. I thought it was strange, but I didn't think too much of it. The day after, again, she wasn't sitting on her porch. I went on with my day, and around 6 p.m., I went to knock on her door to check on her. I knocked and looked through the glass on her windows and saw someone walking towards the back of her house. I couldn't make out the clothes she was wearing, but it looked like the end of a white robe. I kept knocking for about 10 minutes before, like an annoying 12-year-old, unlocking the door with the key she gave me and entering her home. It was eerily quiet in her house, not a sound, but it was stupid cold in there. I entered and looked around before I yelled out, "Mrs. McKinsey, are you okay?" I waited for a response and heard a very faint, "Yes." The thing is, it didn't sound like her. I was about to go to her room before I had this feeling of dread and decided to leave her house and lock up. The next day, I went outside as it was a weekend and saw her son and a few other people there. I went over and greeted her son, who was also very nice to me. He told me she died almost 2 days ago. He lived very far away and decided to check on her when she didn't pick up her phone for 2 days. When he told me that, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I immediately started asking if he was sure she died 2 days ago, and he said yes. I went home and was scared to tell anyone, fearing that I would be looked at as crazy. I don't know what I heard or saw, but it still gives me chills. Case file number 616, written by Lynn Nevermore 18. An unexpected family photograph. I think that I saw a photo of my parents from another reality. I was at the mall with my friend. I won't say which mall for privacy reasons. And we were on our way to the bathroom when we saw this giant picture on the wall. The picture was of different people that had visited the mall over the years. I'm not sure if it was a photo of the exact mall that we were in or not, but at the bottom corner I saw a photo of a couple that looked exactly like my parents. Now I know a lot of people can simply look similar, but the resemblance was uncanny. It was a smaller photo, so I couldn't exactly see the details, but the couple in the photo had an uncanny resemblance to my parents. Here are some things that stood out to me. My parents are a biracial couple. My dad is black and my mom is white. What are the odds that another biracial couple that looks so similar to them would be in that picture at the exact same time? The woman in the photo was holding a Victoria's Secret bag. My mom does not shop at Victoria's Secret, so there's no way it could have been her. The man in the photo was wearing sandals and my dad does not own a pair of sandals like that. My mom also does not own a shirt like the woman in the photo had on. Most importantly, my parents have never been to that exact mall. Now again, I'm not sure if the people in the photo were from the exact same mall that we're in now. I will have to go back and check around to compare the photo to both malls. I am convinced that the people I saw in the photo are my parents' doppelgangers from another reality. Perhaps since me and my brother were not in the photo, one where they don't have kids? My friend and her mom also agreed they looked similar, but thought that the man in the photo was more overweight than my dad. Please let me know what you think of this event. Case notes, file number 616. So, to be fair here, there are 8 billion people on Earth currently. Well, 7.93 billion to be precise. That's a lot of dice rolls when it comes to lookalikes and coincidences. That said, if you distill the odds down, your situation would be exceptionally rare regardless of how many dice are tossed around. Being biracial and looking so strikingly similar to your parents, and also being in your local geographic area, this eliminates a huge swath of that 7.93 billion people. So is it just an extreme coincidence? Perhaps. If this is a glitch though, I'd consider your guess to be the most accurate. That we would be peering into a parallel universe and seeing a mall picture that really was of your parents in that universe where they didn't have kids, and maybe your dad eats a few extra donuts in that universe to explain the extra weight. Lucky dad, eh? My guess is if this is accurate, if you head back to the same mall where the picture was, it'll be gone, or there'll be a picture but without your parents in it. I think you're glimpsing that other universe, temporarily. This seems to happen frequently enough, but it's not clear what causes it. I do think it's region-specific, but it also depends on the person. The wiring in your brain has to be just right, or you won't see anything. Case file number 617, written by Cookie Boy. Even extradimensional entities need toilet paper. Okay, I just reached up in the closet on the top shelf where we keep our extra toilet paper rolls, and there were 2 rolls left. As I grabbed one, the other one fell and I couldn't reach it fast enough, and as soon as I looked down to pick it up, it was nowhere to be found. I'm talking of a fraction of a second between when it fell and when I looked down for it. I moved everything around there on the ground. It didn't fall into any container or anything like that. I searched for at least 15 minutes and it's just gone. Did I open a portal or is this a glitch in the Matrix? I'm so confused. It has now been 24 hours. I have searched far more than 15 minutes at this point. My girlfriend came home and looked everywhere with me. It's nowhere to be found. It doesn't make any sense. I have now tried politely asking for the roll back, as well as test dropping another roll from the same spot, to no avail. Again, this doesn't make sense. Bonus file, written by Anagram Soup, Symmetry of the Beginning and the End. I am not a spiritual person, nor do I believe in the paranormal, but, and it's an interesting but. 3 weeks ago, my cat died in my arms. Our bond was remarkable. I found him as a kitten. He was crossing a dangerous country road, so I stopped, opened my door, and he just jumped into my lap and curled up there. I was his. I'm an animal lover and I've had special pets, but Solomon was almost like a familiar to me. We even had our own special language. The week he died, he went missing on a Monday. I knew something bad had happened because he always came to me when I called him. I searched every square inch of my house, the woods and land around the house, and each neighbor's properties for days. I even arranged to bring in search dogs. I'm telling you, if he was out there, I would have found him, and I was devastated. Then Wednesday came around. Most of the friends and family members helping me search were exhausted and losing hope. Can't lie, I was too. At dusk, I prepared to turn in. My body ached and my spirit was broken, but I was just so damn restless. So, setting out solo for the first time, I leashed up my dog and decided to walk the property one last time. And that's when he found me. I was losing light when I spotted him out of the corner of my eye, sitting on the bank opposite the creek, a place I had already searched a dozen times at least. I called to him and he looked towards me, almost as if he was searching my face to make sure it really was me before responding, and then literally bolted towards the house. Something was strange about this interaction, but we'll come back to that at the end. So I ran back up to the house, went down to the spot where I had seen him, and searched all around the woods with the light I had left. The entire time, though, I felt pulled toward the cellar, another place I had also searched many times, and in the cellar he was. I knew as soon as I started down the steps. He answered my calls this time, the way he always has, but he was not right. He could not move. Turns out he threw a saddle thrombus, a massive blood clot, cutting off all circulation to his hind legs and tail. Solomon could not walk, let alone move or sprint across acres to make it from his spot by the bank to the cellar in just a few minutes between these two encounters. He purred from the moment I picked him up until the very second he threw major clots to his lungs and brain. 3 hours later, he died in my arms. My Solomon found me in the beginning and he found me again at the very end. I cannot explain what I saw or how it happened. When I spotted him by the creek, I found it almost impossible to focus on his face, almost as if I was looking at a poor quality recording of him, and more significantly, his eyes were completely black, not cloudy, his most distinguishing feature. Even the vet agrees that there was no way that it would have been physically possible for him to have run from the spot I saw him all the way to the cellar. I don't understand what this experience was, but I'm starting to believe that he found a way to come back to me as the end was nearing. I will never forget this moment. I miss you, Solomon. Bonus file, written by Drizzly Earth 175. My head disintegrated through my boyfriend's body. I lost my boyfriend a little over 3 years ago in a car accident. I won't bore you with the details. This occurred about 2 days before his funeral, which was a bit less than a week after his death. The visitation and such took a while, since his death was technically suspicious, as he had had no visible injuries externally. Turned out to be blunt force trauma to the head and chest. Anyways, I said I wouldn't bore you with the details, yet here we are. It was like 9 a.m. and I had just gotten up to pee. I laid back down, since I had no business being up that early, and within about 5 minutes I felt something warm against my back. I thought my cat had snuck in while I was downstairs, so I rolled over to kick her out, since if I didn't, she would scratch and meow to be let out within 20 minutes and wake me up. But I rolled over and didn't see my cat. I saw him. He was lying there, pale and flawless in his striped long-sleeve shirt that I still have to this day, and his favorite jeans. He had this blank expression on his face. He didn't look at me, he just stared at the ceiling, almost like a corpse, morbidly enough. I was in utter shock and thought maybe his death really was a dream, like I wished it was for the last week. I went to lay my head on his chest, but he dissolved into thin air and my head hit the bedsheets. I just sat there wondering what the hell just happened before I rolled over and cried myself back to sleep. To this day, I still have no idea what that was. Weirdly enough, after his death, I started experiencing rampant sleep issues, including sleep paralysis, and I wondered if that's what it was. But looking back, I never fell asleep. I lay there for a few more minutes at most and was still fully lucid through the whole experience. Not only that, but I was able to move. I remember vividly rolling over, propping up on one elbow, and going to lay my head down on it. I don't know if I believe in the paranormal or an afterlife, but I never had experiences. Yes, there's more than one, like this, until after his death. Case file number 618, written by MemerBoy18. See, Mom? Studying is dangerous. I, 17 male, was studying in my room with my door locked. I started writing a mock test at 13:46 and started timing my test with my watch's stopwatch. Compared to the previous test that I had attempted, this one was fairly easy. I remember starting question 4 at 14:24 while the stopwatch showed 38 minutes. Question 4 was the easiest in the paper, and it felt like it took 5 to 6 minutes at the most. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. After I got done with the question, I heard my dog barking, which stopped my train of thought. I looked up from the paper, and the time on the clock was 15:32. I checked my stopwatch to confirm whether or not this was a glitch, and it too displayed 1 hour and 46 minutes. This is really freaking me out. Can anyone explain this, or has anyone had a similar experience? To note, I do have narcolepsy, and at first I thought that this was just another episode, but I always remember waking up from my episodes. This time, I was fully awake and aware of my surroundings the entire time. Also, this may be unrelated, but I took the second dose of the vaccine today. I reluctantly spoke to my mom about my experience, and as I expected, she was very skeptical. However, I want to share that she mentioned talking to me through the door, asking me to give my dog lunch at around 15:15. According to her, I yelled back, "No!" I do not remember this exchange of words at all, and it's quite confusing because A, my mom hardly has to remind me to feed my dog. I've had her for around 6 years now, and I feed her at around 3, pretty much on autopilot. And B, she said that she was conducting an online yoga class, she's a yoga instructor, from 2 to 3, and that I was sitting in the living room until 2, which is impossible since I was studying in my room at the time. What is going on? Case notes, file number 618. So as you mentioned, you have narcolepsy. The logical thought here then is that you did blank out, even if it's unusual for you to do so without remembering yourself waking up. Though the strange aspect is your mom saying that you were in the living room during this episode. According to her, you were in the living room until 2. I'm not that well versed on narcolepsy, but I always thought of it as sudden sleep syndrome, basically. I suppose it's not impossible to have narcolepsy combined with sleepwalking. It sounds like it'd be exceptionally rare, but not inconceivable. As far as the glitch explanations go, none come obviously to mind. I mean, for aliens, the time of day doesn't match, and your mom did notice you still there during the time anomaly. So unless an alien is abducting you and then replacing you with a clone temporarily. I am a bit at a loss here, because the time this happened, coinciding with your mom seeing you beforehand, and after, with you saying no to feeding the dog during the event, well, the only thing I can conclusively say is it's probably not aliens. Creepy file number 20, written by Amanda Can 77. It's good practice to make sure people have feet. So this happened almost 10 years ago, but it still gives me creeps whenever I think about it. I was finishing college, living back with my parents in our sleepy little town, and had rekindled an old friendship from high school to pass my days. Madison was a chill girl, and I got along pretty well with her boyfriend and brothers, so I ended up spending a fair amount of time over at her place. Madison's mom was a nurse who enjoyed training for marathons, so if she wasn't at work, she was usually out running. Her dad, on the other hand, was off on disability and home every day, except for delivering the paper around the neighborhood at around 4 a.m. Through passing conversation with Madison, I learned he had been a professor before going off work, but I didn't feel it was my place to inquire any further than that. He was never anything but pleasant to me during our interactions, but I was always struck with the notion that he seemed very distracted by something, as if there was always another conversation happening that he needed to return to. My parents are the type who always have questions about my friends, even if I was a 22-year-old college student, so I filled them in on what I knew and where I had been spending my afternoons. My mom asked me if I knew what her dad was off on disability for. I told her I did not, at which point my dad piped up and said he believes he deals with some mental illness. He then gently explained that he had responded to a 911 call with the volunteer fire department to go retrieve Madison's father out of the garage after a failed suicide attempt. My heart went out to everyone involved, and my questions surrounding her dad were satisfied. I continued hanging around Madison and her family for the rest of the summer, never having any issues besides a hangover the next day. One night we were all over at Madison's house celebrating someone's birthday, I think. Everyone was congregating in the kitchen, sharing snacks, drinking wine, dancing. Even Madison's parents were down and having a good time with us. Her dad came over to me calmly with his drink and asked if he could speak to me in the other room just off the kitchen. I agreed and followed him, thinking he was probably going to ask me to move my car. When we got into the other room, I could see the concerned look on his face and became a little worried, hoping I hadn't done something wrong. "Amanda, I don't mean to scare you, but my paper route is through your neighborhood, and I saw something the other night while I was heading down your street. I noticed a man coming towards me on the other side of the road. I don't usually see anybody else out that early, so I was a little surprised, but as he got closer, I noticed he had no feet. He made eye contact with me as he said the last part, and I could tell he was being serious. I had no idea what to do, and I just froze, and he just floated on past," he said with a dramatic arm wave. He then began to shake his head as if saying no. "Anyways, I think it's a reaper, and I thought you should know." He made eye contact again, but smiled sweetly. I picked up my jaw off the floor and managed to thank him for letting me know. He nodded dutifully and went back into the other room, rejoining the party. I told Madison about it later on in the evening, just so that she would know what was going on with her dad. She seemed embarrassed, but not surprised by this information, and told me to ignore her dad because he was crazy. Her dad carried on as usual around me after that and never brought it up to me again. After I finished college and moved out, Madison and I sort of lost touch. I really don't think about her that often. I do, however, always check to make sure people have feet when I'm out walking in the early morning hours. Creepy file number 21, written by ggrriiffiinn. Did you miss me? So when I was about 11, I would love to ride my bike. I could do it for hours. One day I decided to go to the forest. It was near the village I was living in, 1 kilometer away. Around 40 meters away from it, I noticed something. It was something white in the grass on the left side of the road under a rock. There was a piece of paper with a rock on it, and on the paper was written with charcoal, "Hello." As a dumb kid, I came back the next day. The paper piece was still there, but when I got there, I also had a piece of paper with the word "Hi." Then I came back the next day too, and it was written on it, "How are you?" I had a paper and a pen with me, and I wrote back, "I'm good, you?" Things were going really well. Once, I tried staying there the entire day and night to find out who was the dude that was writing those. I told my parents I would stay with a friend. It was in vain. No one came. Time passed and we became really good friends. We would have conversations and we grew really close. One day, not intentionally, we just stopped talking. I came to the place less and less until I stopped. In the last letter, I remember the last thing he wrote was, "Gonna miss you." Around 20 years passed, I'm 32, and I found a note written on paper with charcoal with a rock on top of it in the front of my house. Missed me? So this is my most sincere what the hell No one knew about that, so how the hell could this be a prank? What the hell? 1 day passed. I took the paper inside my house, left it inside my drawer. I'm not sure how to feel about this, but I am somehow happy as long as he's not some evil murderer. I don't think he is. Any thoughts are welcome.